I'm David Foster. I ought to tell you that, some of you might not know. I'm the privileged position of being the Chief Executive of the Parks Trust, and have been for a little while, 14 years. In a moment I'm going to just quickly take you through the year that we've had, because this is our annual meeting, so I want to tell you all about what we've done in the last year, and telling you a bit more about some of the things that we're going to be doing. And then following me, Julie, who is our Events and Community Engagement Manager. Julie will be taking you through some of the wonderful events that we've had and some of the ones that we've got coming up. But first, let me introduce you to our chairman, Richard Foreman, and Richard is going to
speak for 10 minutes.
Speak for 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Can people hear me? Yeah. Brilliant. That's great. Now I'm just going to say a few words, really, about our work as trustees, actually, and really some of our thoughts of where we are in the trust, where we'd like to get to. I'm Richard Foreman, as David said. I've been a trustee since 2008. I've had the privilege of being the chair for the last 3 years. I've lived and worked in Milton Keynes for most of my working life, and I think as a resident of Milton Keynes, and I guess most people here are users of the park, so I don't need to tell you, it's such a fantastic facility. But as someone who worked in commercial property, trying to tempt companies to come into Milton Keynes, persuade them to come here, investors to come here, they have huge economic benefit as well. You know, that fact's not always fully appreciated. When someone tapped my shoulder and said, "Would you like to be a trustee?" I was delighted to say yes. But even more delighted when I learnt the sort of full mission, because I was assumed the Parks Trust is about creating beautiful landscapes. But then David or somebody in my induction said, actually, it's about maximising the benefit of the parks for the people of Milton Keynes. So that kind of runs through everything that we're doing in here. It's not just about Rob's bit creating wonderful parks, it is about the education bit, the events and so on and so forth, which I think is really exciting. Well, where are we as a trust? Well, Milton Keynes is 50 years old this year. That's very exciting. The Parks Trust is 25 years old. Again, most of you know that we are a charity. We're totally self-financing. We were set up by the Milton Keynes Development Corporation with, in my view, considerable vision and foresight, setting us up with an endowment. They basically gave the Parks Trust a bundle of properties, shops, pubs, factories, offices, and the job of saying, right, with that bundle of properties and the income you get from that, please go ahead and manage the parks for the next 1,000 years, and please don't come back and ask for any more money. So that's quite important, actually. I mean, that endowment is there to last a very long time. Probably day one it wasn't enough to last a very long time. My predecessors did a super job of growing that endowment, we're on this constant mission of working towards a sustainability target where we feel we've got enough in the pot to manage our investments forever. But that pot is about commercial investment. It's there to finance our charitable activities. What's our role as trustees? Really two main responsibilities. One, and it's an oversight of our executive team clearly, but one is the management of that endowment policy, that endowment fund, and clearly the maintenance and the continued improvement of the parks themselves. As a group of trustees, we've also been spending some time in the last 6 months, 12 months, years to looking at really the future of Milton Keynes and how we can help our partners in terms of the future parks that are being created, and indeed those parks that aren't under our remit. Firstly, the endowment bit. As I say, we've got this responsibility to run the parks forever. This responsibility to grow our endowment. We have diversified over the piece. We sold quite a number of the initial properties. We continue to do so to churn that. It's all about trying to get properties with greater longevity, with better potential for income flow, capital growth. We have, as part of our portfolio, also some equities which are managed for us by Saracens and Casanova. But actually, as a trust, we're still quite heavily dependent on property, which has the benefit of producing a rental income for us, which we need for our day job. The day job is first and foremost about maintaining the parks, but we've got a highly enthusiastic team who are always looking at ways of not just maintaining them but improving the parks. And this runs from minor bits of, I don't know, managing bits of forest to improve the understory, improve the biodiversity, to some really exciting projects. We had the floodplain forest open last year. We've got the Linford Study Centre, which we took on board. We've got the, David referred to the Linford Manor, the fabulous gardens there, and the work with Heritage Lottery funding we're looking at. We're spending quite a lot of money on Willen Lake at the moment. The Trust took the bold decision a couple of years ago to take that back from de Savary. It was privately owned, privately run, and we felt it was heading downhill. So we are investing there to improve the offer. We've got the splash pad opening, we've got plans for improved cafe facilities, improved parking. We'd like to make a commercial return on it, but first and foremost we want to make sure it's a good facility for the future. And then there's that public involvement bit, which, as I say, one of the key things that attracted me to Trust in the first place. Our team, supported by I think over 200 volunteers now, a fantastic team of volunteers, ensure that we have something like 6,000 people having some sort of educational experience in the parks each year, which is just amazing. The team also help to generate, support, initiate hundreds and hundreds of events in the parks, from very small ones to very big ones. And big effort at the moment to try to reach out to all sorts of groups to make sure it's not just the people here are represented, but actually everybody in Milton Keynes has a chance to use and value those parks. I mentioned briefly the sort of longer term view, longer term position. As we manage our endowment fund, we do become more sustainable. We do have the ability to talk to the council and parishes and our other partners to look at ways we can help them with the parks we don't currently have a remit for. We're also pretty concerned about the future of Milton Keynes. Milton Keynes is now developing beyond its city boundaries, and we're really concerned that we don't have an old Milton Keynes with fabulous parkland and a new Milton Keynes with pretty mean and ungenerous parkland. We think it's really, really important that the parkland is connected. That's important for the users, so you can cycle through it, walk through it. It's important for the wildlife, the diversity, and so on and so forth. And it's also really, really important as to how it's managed and maintained in the future. We know the council, like all councils around the country, don't have enough money to look after parks. It's not their fault, that's just a fact of life. The endowment model that MK invented has been copied. It was copied by British Waterways when they converted to a trust. It's been, David has loads of councils coming in to knock at his door, say, how can we create a trust like you've got? Bloody difficult to create it from scratch. We've actually got one, and we've been missing a big trick if we don't try to make sure that the future parks have the same protection as the current parks. I mean, the plus on that, Phil here and his team are working with the council on a joint vision document, strategy document, and you know, we could bury our heads. Our remit is to look after the parks we've got, but we're all here because we love the parks in Milton Keynes. So you know, I'm just one of all of you in that respect. Right, I'm going to wrap up because there's probably been lots of nice pictures there, but I'm going to, as it's 25 years, I'd like to say a big thanks really to the people who've made the Parks Trust possible, the people who initiated in the first place. I'm looking around for faces in case I missed some names, but lots of people at the Development Corporation, like people like Frank Henshaw's, John Walker's, Bob Hill, Alan Duff and so on and so forth. But people who took the baton on, people like Brian Salter, the early trustees, John Duggan, Liz Gifford and others. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss lots of names, but you know, just a huge thanks to what we've done there. Massive thanks to our team, who are just brilliant, and again, thanks again to the volunteers, without whom we couldn't achieve all we do achieve. We are 25 years old, and amazingly, we've got 3 members of staff who have served 25 years with the Trust, which is really exciting. So we'd like to mark this occasion by inviting to come up and receive a little memento. So we've got Colin Savage, Mark Cotton, and our Landscape and Ops Director, Rob Reekey. If you could welcome them on stage. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll hand you back to David. Thank you.
I'm just going to quickly run through some of the things that we've done this last 12 months. It's been a pretty good year. I seem to say that every year. And that's true, really, and so it should be. We've got the resources to do our job. We've got them well invested, as Richard has told you, and we've got a great team of staff, many of whom have been here a long time, so we sort of know what we're doing. We've got the resources to do it, and so each year is usually a pretty good year. And a pretty good year looks a bit like this. We've managed our woodlands and our trees and our plantations. A big job. You know how much we've got, probably. And all that woodland needs thinning, and all the plantations need thinning on a regular basis. And so we've managed to do that. Some of it is quite hairy work here in Shenley Wood. But we've also taken the plunge this year, I think probably for the first time, and we've thinned some of the plane trees that we own, which is rather a nerve-wracking experience. You know, as soon as we start it, we expect people to be ringing us up. But actually this time, Rob did some really good consultation with people. The CMK Town Council helped us get the message out there and explain what we were doing. And we didn't have, I don't think we had any complaints, did we, Rob? No, so we've thinned the plane trees that we own. Unfortunately, we don't own that many plane trees. We own the ones alongside Campbell Park, along Silbury and Aveby Boulevard, and we own the ones at the back of North Row and South Row because they're part of the grid road landscape, the H5 and the H6. But we don't own much more than that in terms of the plane trees. So the ones down Midsummer, Avebury and Silbury in the city centre are all the responsibility of the council, and Richard's already told you the council don't have any money to maintain them, so that's really quite serious. And those plane trees are such an essential part of our green infrastructure. We just hope we can encourage and persuade and help the council with that task, because that really is absolutely essential that those trees are thinned and looked after, and sadly some of them need replacing as well. We've cleared out our ponds. We've got about 200 ponds and lots of water courses, all part of the fantastic drainage system here in Milton Keynes that stops the city from flooding, and we have a part to play in making sure that that happens, along with the Internal Drainage Board and Anglian Water, who we work very closely with. And then some of our big balancing lakes, we have to go and cut the reeds from time to time, and we've got this lovely amphibious vehicle for doing so. And we cut the grass, and here in Campbell Park we're now taking a hay crop off the middle section of the park every year, and that's working really well. The sward, as they call it, is improving and becoming more rich in wildflowers, and things like this Roselle's bush cricket and yellow rattle are here in Campbell Park now, which is fabulous. And we've only been doing this, I think, 6 years we've been taking a hay crop off, and already that grass is becoming much more diverse in the species living within it, and it's really colourful in the spring. And the sheep seem to like it as well. We've had a record year for sheep, for lambs this year. Do you know what? I asked Gavin to find out what it was, and I can't remember. Where's Gavin? 450 lambs this year we brought into this world, and you may have already eaten some of those, sadly, but that's life. And we've also got a few hundred cattle as well dotted around the city. Financially, it's been okay. Last year was okay for us. This chart shows how our total net assets, so the actual worth of the company, is increasing. You can see that horrible dip there. That's not when Gavin, our finance director, joined us. That's when the financial crisis really hit us for 6. But you can see since then we have steadily recovered. We've had to be quite commercial, and we've had to not take risks, but we've had to be quite aggressive in the way in which we've invested our money, and we've also borrowed money to help us gear up our funds. And we are nearing that dotted line at the top there, which is our sustainability target. When we get there, that's about 140 million. When we get there, we think we can sort of breathe a sigh of relief and declare ourselves financially sustainable. Hopefully we don't then have another great dip. But we're heading there, and we're making good progress, and that has enabled us to do some really interesting things, and is enabling us to say to Milton Keynes Council, we'd like to help you with your landscape management problems, because we think we're getting to a position where we can progressively do a bit of that as well, if things continue the way they do. And I don't want to sort of have that as a hostage to fortune. But just a bit more about our investments. The bulk of our investments are in funds. About 46% of our investments are in funds invested on the stock market. All the funds we invest in follow the United Nations Code of Conduct for Sustainability, and about 26% of the funds that we're invested in are actual sustainability funds. So they're investing in companies that do things like make wind turbines and the like. So we're trying to be greener. We've got trustees who are particularly keen on looking at our investment policy and making sure that that holds water and is appropriate for a charity such as ours, who are very concerned about the environment. So we are avoiding investment in fossil fuels as much as we can. It's not always easy, but we're making good progress. And then the other 54% of our funds is invested in property. But our investments aren't the only source of income for us. This year we raised about £2.4 million from our green estate, just from our activities here in Milton Keynes. And that has grown every year. So the first set of trees you see there on the left that's the agriculture column. So not a particularly good year. You can see the third tree along is a bit smaller. That's because we had TB problems with our cattle, and that put restrictions on us. Like many farmers, it's not that unusual, but it put restrictions on when we could buy and sell and move our cattle around. But lots of other sources of income for us. You know, you can see canal boats moored on our land on the other side of the road from here. Some of you may have had firewood from us. Some of you may even be playing cricket with one of our cricket bat willows. I know the new mayor has got one, and he's hoping to come and play here next May with his Milton Keynes Parks Trust cricket bat. So And as I say, all this investment means that we have been able to undertake a good amount of repair work and maintenance work. And some of our work that we need to do is longer term. This boardwalk had been down for about 25 years or so, Rob?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, I think 25, 30 years.
Yeah, so this is at Willen Park, and you can see how quick their guys work. So, but we've also, as I say, we've thinned 12 hectares of woodland. We've planted about 34,000 trees and shrubs this year. Most of them are replacement planting because trees and shrubs do, well, shrubs particularly have a limited life, as you know from your gardens. So 34,000 trees and shrubs, miles of footpaths resurfaced, and we've done, I think, 15 bridges and boardwalks this year. So we can only do that by making sure that we generate the money from our investments and from places like Willen Lake. We've had a big signage program ongoing that's still carrying on. It's a massive undertaking, putting all our new signage up and getting that all tickety-boo. We've probably got another 5 years of that. I told the board it was a 5-year program, but it's really looking like a 10-year program, I'm afraid, because there's so much more to do. But we know that people are really valuing this signage. We know that when people ring us up now, increasingly they will give us the name of the park, whereas before they would say they'd have real difficulty describing where they are and what they'd seen, and that's a real good telltale sign. You'll also be pleased to know that, because I know some people here have lobbied me about this, we are progressively replacing the interpretive boards that you find in the park, and these are just, this is 9 of them that we've done this year. I think we've done more than that, and we've got another big job to keep that going because they don't last forever, and we're also bringing new boards in to tell people about the place that they're visiting. And of course play areas and trim trails. This is the play trail at Willen Lake that we've replaced this year. We took on a new park at Stanton Low. This was a really good joint project with Milton Keynes Council, where the housing there, the new housing at Oak Ridge Park, the developer paid for a country park to be built. Started a long time ago. Brian, you negotiated that deal with Genesis many years ago. Well, it's at last come to the fruition, and we've taken that park on. The council implemented the project, built a fantastic play area, and we've got probably, I don't know, 70 or 80 acres there now of lovely grazing land and good play facilities, kickabout areas, and a good play area. And we've also got this redundant church, which is Stantonbury Church. Have I got that right? Stantonbury Church? Stanton Low Church. Stanton Low Church. You know it better than me. I'm a fraud. So that's the play area. Another one of our really interesting historic sites, Richard mentioned, is Great Linford Manor, where we're on the verge of putting in a phase 2 Heritage Lottery Fund bid. It's a wonderful bit of parkland. We don't own the manor, that belongs to Mr. Winkleman, but he lives right in this middle of this park, surrounded by all this lovely parkland, and it's really special parkland. It's not like any of our other parkland that we have in Milton Keynes, and we want to celebrate that specialness, and we want to what do we want to do, Phil? What's the word?
Conserve, restore.
Conserve or restore. You've got 3 words that you use.
Revive, reveal and restore.
Revive, reveal, restore. That's what I was thinking of. That's what we're trying to do. So our bid, at the moment we're just preparing our bid for phase 2, which will be for £3 million, that we will spend, not on the building, that's not ours, but to spend on the landscape. So we've had public consultation meetings, this one only a couple of weeks ago, which got a really good turnout, and once we've done this work we'll get the bid in, and we'll then hopefully be ready to start early next year. we've made good use of our study centre at Howe Park Wood, which is really coming into its own now, partly thanks to a wonderful cafe. So you've got some fans. Where's Barry? Where's Barry? Barry's here. Oh, there he is. Right, the grumpy cook. Not looking so grumpy today, Barry. So that's going really well. It's actually a bit of a problem. It's a victim of its own success, if you like. We are a bit concerned about the pressure that all the visitors are now putting on the wood, and we've got to manage that better, and we're hoping that Barry and his staff in the cafe will help us tell people about the wood, how special it is, and how they need to treat it with great care. We've had some great events. This was Nature Day at Howe Park Wood. This little boy, I'm told, wanted his face painted as a water buffalo. All the work we do to tell him about the native wildlife of Milton Keynes, and he wanted to be a water buffalo. One or two of our longer serving staff moved on. Bryony, a fox you probably know, quite a few of you. That's Bryony with the big picture. Bryony's gone to a fantastic job up in North Yorkshire, having done 13 years here, I think. And Dawn up there in the top corner, she was one of our first community rangers, and she's gone to run the parks down in South Buckinghamshire. Bryony was instrumental in many things, including getting the funding for a new play area at Howe Park Wood. This came courtesy of Tesco. Can you believe Tesco doing something really good like that? So this is from the 5p that you all pay for your bags when you go to Tesco. They dish the money out to charities, and we got £12,000 for a new bit of play equipment at Howe Park Wood. And Bryony did a lot of great things for us. She really got the education work going, which is, as Richard mentioned, we reach about 6,000 people with our education work every year. We think that is absolutely essential. It's not enough just to provide these parks. We've got to tell people, explain them to people, make sure that people understand why they're special, get them to understand about the wildlife and the stuff that lives beneath the water. And our volunteer work, they had a great year because they finished the wall. Carla's been with us quite a few years, but you didn't start it, did you, Carla? No. Yeah. Martin started it. So how many years was that? Too many to count?
I think it was about 75 days, actually.
Oh, 75 days.
We worked all year.
75 days, but spread over many years. So a lovely wall. This is on the north of the city, up near the floodplain forest, which we opened last year, as Richard mentioned. Adam Henson came to open it for us, and here he is alongside Mike Street, who was one of our first employees, whose idea it was, working with Brian, to create this wonderful new habitat where we've introduced these lovely conic ponies, which Mark here plays a part in looking after. He's making them rather tame, and he's not meant to make them tame, Mark. But they are wild ponies, and they're helping us manage the grassland. Well, it's not grassland, the scrub. They even eat the weed growing in the pond, so they're pretty useful animals. And alongside them we've got, how many cattle have we got there? Six Welsh blacks up there as well now, and that's a great way, you know, a really good sustainable way to manage this bit of nature reserve. We've done lots of other practical conservation work. This is one of Rob's favourites because he's a fisherman. So this is a little inlet coming in that we've put in where the old watercourse used to be on the Ousel. So this is a refuge for fish. And then this is one that we did with the Environment Agency up at Stony Stratford. Millfield is on your left, and we just found the old channel and dug that out so that fish can now go upstream and downstream and avoid the weir, which was, of course, was a block to any movement. And they can also shelter there when everything's in spate and rushing down the river. The invertebrates and the fish can find a place to refuge. That's why it's called a fish refuge. Volunteers are absolutely crucial to our work. Not just some of you folk who I know volunteer for us, but we have corporate volunteers. These are the gang from Network Rail.
Yes.
They came out for a litter picking session, and very grateful we were for that. And of course our trustees are volunteers, and we took on 5 new trustees this last year, from left to right: Duncan, Richard, Gamil, Phil and Jan. So 5 great new trustees, and we're now looking for another 2 trustees to join us this October. We're particularly looking for people with financial management experience, because we've identified that's a gap. It's not a gap at the moment, but it's going to be a gap when the next couple of trustees retire, so we need 1 or 2 trustees with financial management experience, and we'd also like someone with farming experience background, because we had a really good farmer on our board and he left us last year before last, and we haven't really replaced him. And we do a lot of farming. We have about 700 acres of farmland. And then lastly, in my roundup of the year, we've done a lot of work at Willen Lake, £2.8 million on phase 1. A big new car park gone in there. If you remember, there are 2 car parks at Willen Lake. The small one on the North Bay car park only had about 50 or 60 cars. The rest of it was grass car parking. We've now made that into a tarmac car park. It looks a bit like a sea of tarmac at the moment, but there is some landscaping to go in, some trees and shrubs, and it will all settle down. And we've also created a great new big event space, because there really wasn't much space at Willen Lake. Lovely place, very popular, 800,000 visitors a year and growing, not getting any fewer visitors. We needed more space for events and activities, so we've taken half of that mini bowl away to create more flat space for picnics, for events, for kicking a ball around, flying a kite and the like, and it is already proving extremely popular. So let's just quickly look ahead. Some of the more immediate things we've got coming up. The Splash and Play, that's what we're calling it, at Willen, is going to open, we're hoping next week, although it's a bit tight, but certainly in the next few weeks the Splash and Play will open. This has been a big investment for us. It's about providing an additional facility for people. There's been a bit of controversy around there, because I think some people on social media felt we should be making this available free. But as I say, we've spent £2.8 million down there at Willen Lake. We've got to try and recoup some of that money. And some people feel that half an hour for a £3 for a half-hour session isn't long enough. And of course, if we find that it isn't long enough, we can make it longer. We can change that if we want to. But we've been around the country and looked at lots of splash parks, and half an hour is fairly typical. So other things, we're hearing tonight, I think, about our plans for a new pavilion at the top end of Campbell Park, right here in fact, and that's an artist's impression of what that image will look like. So it's right on the lip of the events plateau, looking out over the amphitheatre. And the key to that, the thing we're trying to achieve there, is to have a facility that will make the use of the amphitheatre and the use of the events plateau much easier. So we'll have a lovely big cafe there with a big outdoor seating area. We're also going to have, thanks to Central Milton Keynes Town Council, a big community hall there where we can have indoor events as well as all the stuff that we do outside. And there'll be toilets and there'll be information as well there. So we're going to hear about that tonight at the Development Control Committee. So you'll read about it tomorrow, I hope. This is another view of it. This is a view for the other side of it. It's a beautiful building, sits down in the landscape, but is still quite majestic. It's not hidden away, but it just sits really nicely in the parkland. Mostly timber. This is Great Linford Manor. This is one of the ponds there that we want to restore. This pond was put in, well, Rebecca, tell me, when was that put in? When was that built, do you think? 1760, okay. So long before the canal went through, cutting through there, long before the railway went through there, Great Linford Manor had fantastic grounds that that went all the way down to the River Ouse, and then the canal and then the railway cut through them. But we want to restore what we've got there, which includes this wonderful pond, circular pond, and we want to bring back some of the landscape features that were there. We're also hoping that we'll have a new cafe at Fursdon Lake. This is the design of it, quite a big cafe with a lovely outlook looking out over the lake. That gives us toilets, which is something that our public surveys of people always tell us people want. Consistently #1 on the list of things, what would you like to see to improve this park? Toilets is right up there. So the only way we can really provide toilets if we put them within some other facility. So a cafe, and we're putting in an adventure golf facility there as well. It's not a golf course. Some people got agitated thinking it was a golf course, and all the land was going to be unavailable to the public. It only takes up a couple of acres. And then here's our map of Milton Keynes. We also will, over the next few years, take on more landscape, more parks that are being built at the moment. It's probably not that clear, but the yellow areas on there, that's all landscape that's under construction. Some of it pretty good, a lot of it a bit mean. As Richard was saying, we are concerned about the way the city's expanding and the way the developers are not being anywhere near as generous with the green space as the Development Corporation were way back in the day. But Brooklands Park, which is a nice piece of parkland over on the eastern expansion area, that's ready to come across to us. Places for People are about to transfer it to us, aren't they, Ben? I've seen him here.
Yes.
There he is. You've heard it there. Ben, who's the man in charge of Places for People, he's going to make sure that's transferred within the next few days, weeks. Good old Ben. Right. Okay, we've got your word on that, Ben. This is what it looks like from the air. So it's quite a spectacular piece of linear park. It joins up with the rest of our parkland, more or less. There's a little bit more to do around the coachway there to connect it up. And then it connects up with the bund, the ridge that goes all the way down beside the motorway, which is a really quite an interesting, if a little noisy, walk. But it's an interesting addition to our network of parks. The one problem with this piece of parkland, like lots of the parkland that we're getting, is it has to fulfil a lot of functions. So this piece of linear park is also the storage area for water at times of flood. So that's a bit of a shame, because it means that at certain times of the year it won't really be available for people, or some of it won't. And there'll be a lot of debris for us to clear up each time it floods. And it looks like it is going to flood every year. So that's a bit of a shame that we're starting to see that happen now. As new development takes place, the developers naturally need to maximise the land that they have to build on, so the green space is actually having to fulfil lots of purposes: flood alleviation, sports pitches, play areas, to name but 3. And then lastly, looking forward, this is a bit of a gloomy note, but this is an aerial shot of Shenley Wood from above the Toot, if you know that bit of the city. The Toot is a scheduled ancient monument, lovely grass area where there was a medieval village in medieval times. And next to it, the retirement village, extra care retirement village. And then there's Shenley Wood. And those of you that are near the front will see that Shenley Wood is just in that picture. This was earlier this year, just coming into leaf. The oaks were just coming into leaf. The majority of the other trees there are ash trees, and we've got Callara, the ash dieback, now in Milton Keynes, and we're rather concerned that that wood will probably suffer a real decimation over the next few years. We had the Forestry Commission here earlier this year, and they said, well, we had woods like this down in Kent with just about the same amount of Callara as you have got, and within 5 years we've lost nearly all the ash trees. So that is going to have a terrible effect. We won't fell them all, of course, Deadwood is a fantastic habitat, and maybe you can be philosophical and say this is all part of the process of change and evolution. But nevertheless, the loss of ashes in this city will have quite a devastating effect, I think, not just in our woodlands. So that's me. That's the quick roundup of what we've done and what we're looking forward to or not looking forward to in the case of Kalara. I'm now handing over to Julie, who's going to quickly take you through some of our events.
Hello everyone, thank you for being so patient in the heat. I'll just run through some stuff, exciting stuff that we've been doing this past year in terms of events and activities in the parks, and some things coming up. So 2016 was a really exciting time for events and activities in the parks. We had actually over 485 events and activities in our parks. We always say 200, but actually it's way more than that when you think about all the big events, but then also all the small events and the recreation activities, parks and run and things like that that go on. 110 of those were actually events and activities that the Parks Trust, we did ourselves. And then over 275 were other parties, friends, partners who put on events, including International Festival, the Dragon Boat Festival that we see at Woollen Lake every year, and the MK Marathon that runs through all our parkland. So a massive array of events and activities taking place in the parks all the time. Our events that we held last year that we were particularly proud of, our Open Air Film Festival that we try and host every year, our Big Doggy Do, which has taken a break this year, but we're hoping to see it back because it's always very popular, and World Picnic, these lovely ladies were fan dancers, it's always very colourful. And here's our Dragon Boat Festival, and some chaps running through Walton Lake at the MK Marathon on the half marathon, and there's some volunteers you can see. We were giving out water at that particular marathon stop to those runners. Other places where we host events, so we do have Campbell Park and Woollen Lake where we host a lot of events and all the big events take place, but we do use the Parkland network and host events in lots of little places. So this is Hell Park Wood. We've just had Nature Day, and these are some lovely events going on where the children are on the pond dipping platform and they're all keen to get in, and then we've got lots of things going on in the woodland. So it's not all about Campbell Park, we do get around the city. Some of our biggest events are actually held in partnership. That's how we're able to do so much. For instance, Play Day. This is Play Day. Last year we had 9,000 in the park at Campbell Park. It's an epic day. But we do it in partnership with Milton Keynes Council, the Play Association, the Preschool Learning Alliance and the Dons Set to help host so many people. We also do our walking festival with Milton Keynes Council and health walk volunteers. And then we also do Proms in Campbell Park, which Marion is here tonight, chair of the orchestra. It's a really proud partnership we have. We've been able to host it in its current form since 2013, and we're particularly proud of Proms in Campbell Park. So the parks are host to many running events. We had over 120 last year running events. This is at Caldecott. This was our Parks and Run. We've got one of our Parks and Run volunteers here tonight. And the guy in the green top you can see is Mike, another one of our Parks and Run volunteers. And they are dedicated volunteers and have been doing it for many, many years. They go out, mark the routes in chalk, and then people can go and run them for free. So we have a whole variety of stuff. You can see it was a very nice sunny day at Caldecott where they're taking running there. But we also have lots of fundraising events like Race for Life, come through the parks every year. Willen Hospice are doing numerous events, and they've got a 10k that they've started doing every year. And the NSPCC Half, Steve over in the back there, which runs through a lot of our parkland, up the canal, up through Campbell Park. And we're really proud to host running events like that, particularly when they're for fundraising. Many of the events within the 485 that we had, about 60 of them were cultural or community events. This is Art in the Park last year, which is organised by Milton Keynes Islamic Arts Heritage and Culture Group. and there's some ladies there doing some Bollywood dancing. We also have the Filipino Festival that takes place every year. It's in a couple of weeks, and that's organised by the MK Filipino Society. And we work really closely with those groups because we're really proud to have those events in the parks. And I work with them really closely, put on workshops for them and help them get their events off the ground and really well attended. So out in the park, the last one we just had, they saw about 10,000 people over the course of the weekend. So really proud to see that. So 2017 has been an epic, and it'll be bigger than 2016, mainly because of MK50. I'm hoping you're all been to something maybe on the MK50 list. We've done a few projects this year for MK50. This one, our 50 walks for MK50. Hopefully you've all seen the brochures. We're just about to release the autumn brochure. We've been working with Milton Keynes Council, the sport development team, on this. So 50 walks throughout the year, lots of different places to help people, you know, really appreciate what's on their doorstep and go and walk through. And we've had lots of volunteers leading those walks. That's been a great project. And this very week, so from Saturday to Saturday the 8th, we've had our very first Festival of Nature. And so this is a partnership week that we've done with the local Wildlife Trust, so with BBOUT and Milton Keynes Natural History Society. And we're really proud of this week. We started off with one event previously, Nature Day, and we've managed to grow it into a week, especially for MK50. And we're hoping it will become a grower, and we'll see a couple of weeks in the future. But there's still some nature festival events taking place this week. Make sure you take your leaflet as you go out the door. So there's still lots to engage with, lots of walks, and the Wildlife Trust are hosting a big event in Intu on Saturday. So we're really proud of that particular project. And then other things we've had so far. So Campbell Park has got something every weekend this year, which is incredible. And we've had some great ones so far. So a few weeks ago, we had the History Festival. So I'm hoping some of you have been to see this. This is a great photo of Vikings. I couldn't help put them in. And they were so good that I had to put another one in because it was such a great photo. So that was a great 2-day festival over the Saturday, Sunday, organised by Heritage MK, which is the Bletchley Park, CDC, Living Archive, and the museum. And we worked quite closely with them because we really wanted to see that event come to the park, as it was great to see Campbell Park animated in such a different way with lots of living tents and reenactments like that. And then the weekend after that, we had Festive Road with their Festival of Giants. So there's a couple of giants. It was a bit of a stormy day, but they did see lots of people, and it was lovely for Festive Road to host a big event in the park. And the weekend just gone, we've had Art in the Park again, so the 7th Art in the Park, and we're really proud to be working with MK Islamic Arts, Heritage and Culture to see this in the park every year. Willen Lake has also had its big events. So we've had the Dragon Boat Festival a couple of weeks ago. We've also had Colour Obstacle Rush, and there's quite a few bits coming up at Willen Lake. And with that lovely new area, we're hoping we'll see a lot in the future in that space. It's not all about the big events though. You may not know that we do host events in lots of little places, including recreational stuff. This is an event we have twice a year, Ride Out, where we have 120 horses and their riders go throughout the bridle network in MK. And the riders actually come from all over the country because Milton Keynes has such a fabulous bridle network. So the next one is on the beginning of September. It's really quite a sight to see them either head off from Campbell Park or go around the edge of Willen Lake. So if you're a rider, get involved, or if you just want to see them, it's worth going and checking out. And then this weekend coming up, so looking forward, we have Milton Keynes Hindu Association. They're hosting their first Mela and Colour Festival at Campbell Park. So Campbell Park is going to be full of colour for the rest of the summer. But it's going to be fabulous. So this was Colour of Time last year, very similar. But we're really proud that the Hindu Association are coming to the park. Then we've got, following on from that, Filipino Festival is coming back to the park, World Picnic, and for the very first time, the African Diaspora Group are coming together to host an event at the beginning of August to celebrate the whole continent of Africa. So we're really proud of that, and I'm working really closely with that group to bring that event to the park. Play Day is back on the 2nd of August, put it in your diaries. It'll help the summer holidays go quickly if you've got kids. We are hoping that it will be a really big event this year. We've been successful in getting Community Foundation money. The committee have got Community Foundation grant funding for it. And also we were successful in getting Tesco Bags for Help for this particular event as well. So it should be a great event. We've got lots planned. And then later in August, we have our Open Air Film Festival. I'm hoping you've all were voting like mad to get the ones that you wanted to see. On Saturday night, we have Back to the Future. And then Sunday is a great lineup with Toy Story, Grease and Top Gun. So it's kind of the best of the best that we've ever seen in the park. Wow. And then later in the year, we obviously have our seasonal treats, like the fabulous fireworks that the Emmett family are responsible for. And we also have some exciting different things coming up later in the year. So we have Milton Keynes Food Festival is coming back to Linford Manor for a second year, so that will be really exciting. We also have the British Sprint Orienteering Championships at the end of September in Campbell Park, so that will be quite exciting to see, I think. And great for us to be hosting a national sporting event. We'll also have our first Oktoberfest, hopefully, in October, so look out for that, being held by a company who go over the country doing them. And the Canal and Rivers Trust are hoping to put on an illuminated boat festival on the 2nd of December, and we'll be working with them. So great lineup for MK50, I hope you'll agree. One of our key highlights, and this is what I'll end on, is our partnership work with the orchestra for Proms in Campbell Park. So we'll put another pitch in. Marion, are we pleased? I'd like to thank all our sponsors, and we couldn't do it without them. Tickets are available, as are a couple of packages, so you can come and see me and Marion afterwards if you'd like either thing.
Here we are.
Yes, but I do have the video to show you of last year's proms, which hopefully will leave you wanting more.
One of the real purposes of us doing this annual public meeting is to, I suppose, make ourselves available to take any questions that anybody, anywhere, from anywhere, wants to ask us. It's a bit of a, yeah, okay, in a minute. So that's really why we do these events. We are really conscious that we want to give people what they want in the parks, and we try very hard to be accountable. So let's have the first question. Dave here has got one. Hold on, Dave, there's a microphone coming.
Thank you, David. I'm a resident of Wallstone, and I'd just like to put a couple of questions. First, a thank to all the volunteers who help litter picking. It's a major problem, and I, for one, who come round the bottom end of Willand every morning, see the problem. One thing I would ask though, and as I say, a vote of thanks for all those who help, if the Parks Trust could do more around Willen, especially at weekends, because there's an awful lot of rubbish that gets left at the weekends till Monday, and then it just goes all over the park. I believe you may have a different contract now doing those front areas, but that was one. A plea also from us at Woolstone that when you have a major event like you had the week before with regard to the Dragon Boat, it gives us a major problem over there because people don't want to pay to park over here, and they just take our, where we've got a 13th century church and community centre, they just take our car park, and when we have an event there in terms of users, there's just no car parking left at all. But the main thing is a vote of thanks to all those who help, and I know it's an onerous task of trying to keep it clean, especially around Willen Lake, because people just don't seem to care, they just seem to drop it. Whatever they bring, they can't be bothered to take it with them. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's a good one to start with. We are changing our litter arrangements, or we have just changed our litter arrangements at Willen Lake. We've decided we're going to take it out of the contract for the grounds maintenance, and we're going to pick up the litter ourselves. So we've now employed a number of staff who are going to do the litter picking ourselves. So we've taken that job in-house and taken it off the contractor. It was a bit unfair on the contractor. The litter problem at Willen had been growing and growing, and he really couldn't keep up, and he hadn't really priced for it. So we've taken that off him, and we're doing that ourselves. We've got 50 something litter bins, 52 litter bins, I think, Rob, at Willen Lake. We try not to have litter bins. When I came here, we hardly had any litter bins because our philosophy was, let's get people to take it home. And that does work in some places, but at Willen it certainly doesn't, and we've ended up putting more and more litter bins, and I can't see where it's going to end, I'm afraid. We've just got to get better, slicker, more organised at clearing it up quickly, and I think we're on to that, and I think we are doing that. The car parking in Woolstone, yeah, that I wasn't really aware that that was a big problem. We need to come and have a look at that, see if we can help by perhaps putting cones out when we've got big events, but also we need to talk to the Milton Keynes Council about perhaps putting in some clearways, which they have done for us in other places where we've had residents being disturbed when people come to big events in the park. Rebecca, you managed to get that done. It took a lot of badgering, but you got it done up at the top of Campbell Park, I think, and so that might be something that you want to talk to the Town Council about, how they managed to persuade the Milton Keynes Council to do that. Okay, here's another question. Zoe hot-foots it.
It appears that the Parks Trust seems to favour car drivers over people coming on public transport, which seems surprising. Whenever events are advertised, the flyers always say where you can park your car. They never say how to get there by bus. In some places particularly awful. For instance, Stonepit Fields, the bus stops are by no means obvious for people who don't have access to the bus maps and the timetable. Really, I think it should be there as a matter of principle, as well as for the convenience of users.
Well, I couldn't agree more. What does my events manager say about that?
We have tried to work with Aviva in the past, and I agree with you. We've tried to advertise them, and quite often they change the bus routes or they'll change the time, so it's really hard to get exact information for each event. But it's definitely something that we will work harder on and look into a bit more, if that's, you know, obviously something that people are finding a tricky thing when accessing our events, particularly when they're not in Campbell Park or Willen Lake. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's another question.
Andy Sargent, Loughton, Greyhound Parish Council. What can you tell me in an open meeting of the future of the Loughton Equestrian Centre?
Oh, I can tell you quite well. Ben could probably come and tell you. I could tell you that we're close to finalising an agreement.
Yeah, execution copies of the leases went out today.
Oh, brilliant!
So
good timing. Good timing.
Imminent.
So we've come to an arrangement with Ride High, the charity that uses horse riding as a way of supporting disadvantaged kids, and they are taking it on. and the existing tenant is being compensated for leaving his tenancy early. He's going away, and Ride High are going to invest quite a lot of money in the place and bring it back up to scratch, and probably build a new menage and probably some other new buildings as well. So I think it's terribly exciting times for that. The equestrian centre there hasn't flourished that well over the years, and we think it's a wonderful thing that Ride High do, so we're really looking forward to it.
Chairing the local planning committee for the parish council, we look forward to developments to see what's going to happen.
Good. It will be really difficult for them in doing any developments there, because of course it's all scheduled ancient monument, but they've got good people. They've got really good bunch of trustees on their board and a very, very dynamic chief executive. So we're really looking forward to it. Yeah. Andy, Alan.
It's all right.
Last question has gone.
You put up a graph about the assets
Yes.
that the trust has, and the curve was rising, and you said it's going to continue to rise. Where is that increase in asset value coming from? Is it just the existing assets being worth more, or is it new assets being added, and in which case, where are they coming from?
It's both. I mean, primarily it's existing assets growing in value because we've invested sensibly, we think. So our property is increasing in value most years, and our equity investments also increasing in value. We do each year usually take on an additional bit of open space, or quite a lot in some years. It comes in fits and starts, and with that we usually take an endowment from the developer or from the Milton Keynes tariff that the developers all pay into that tariff when they do their developments. And so usually we take an endowment when we take on a new bit of green space. So that bit of Brooklands Park that Ben there manages and has created, his company created, he will be handing that to us with a bag of money, I hope. Oh no, he's already paid the money into the tariff, so Milton Keynes Council will dip into the tariff and give us an endowment, which we calculate how much endowment we need to invest in order to maintain that park, not just for the next 10 years, but forever. And so that's how it works. So that is the reason for some of our growth in our assets, yeah. But of course, with that growth, we get additional liabilities. So that doesn't make us any richer, really, because we take on additional liabilities. So yeah, it's you have to treat that with a little bit of caution. Okay.
Hi, it's Hilary. You were saying that other councils come and talk to you about how can you do it and maybe they can't. So there are two things really. First of all, how was it that MKDC could give an endowment for all our parks? And would it be possible, looking at the figures, it seems just very roughly that it would be costing about, or the income you get is equivalent to about £1,000 per adult in Milton Keynes, let's say. So would it be possible for everyone in the UK to have such a park facility, would you say?
Ah, right, okay. Good question. Probably not, I suppose, would be the answer. But what can happen, and what I have encouraged the government, that sounds a bit grand, I've encouraged the government, but I did go to the select committee and gave evidence at that select committee earlier this year. They recognised that the parks all across the country are in terrible state of decline, and that's not going to get any better. So they asked to see me, and lots of other people of course, to find out about our model and how it works and how it could work and be applied to other cities. And we have had lots of people come to talk to us, most recently Liverpool and Newcastle, and both Liverpool and Newcastle are in the process of setting up trusts to manage their parks. Now, I don't think the council are ever, or the councils are ever going to be able to in Newcastle and Liverpool divest themselves of all that responsibility. But there is a way of building up an endowment. Some of it is not very popular. They tried it in Bristol, where they looked at all the green space in Bristol a few years ago and identified some of the less precious bits that could be developed. And they said, if we develop these less precious bits, we can create an endowment from the proceeds and manage all the rest of the parks to a really high standard. And the people of Bristol told them where to go. So to make that happen, you've got to have a lot of trust, and of course there isn't a great deal of trust around in politicians, which is a terrible, sad thing, I think. How did the Development Corporation did it? Well, the trick the Development Corporation had, of course, they compulsorily purchased all the land that Milton Keynes was built on at agricultural value or a little bit more, and then they invested in the infrastructure, including the green infrastructure, and were able to sell the plots off to developers at house price land prices. And the uplift in value was all captured for the good of society, and a lot of it stuck to the Development Corporation, who were then able to invest in all the wonderful facilities that we've got here, and not just the Parks Trust. The Community Foundation were given an endowment too. But and they also were able to pay back money that they borrowed from the Treasury with interest. So that model, I suggest, is the way in which new developments should be done in Milton Keynes and elsewhere. But whether it will happen or not, I don't know. But if we are going to have new towns or new villages or eco-towns, whatever they call them, the model surely has to be something around capturing the uplift in value that comes by dint of planning permission for the good of society. And one of the goods that you could do with it is to put it into an endowment for looking after the green space, and I think looking after the community facilities forever. I think it makes such good sense, rather than that burden falling on the local authority in years to come.
Hi David, a comment on the last one before I ask my question. The government could have done it at the Olympic Park and they blew it.
They could have done it.
We won't get into politics of that.
We did advise them about that.
Really specific thing, and this is not underscored, not a criticism of the Parks Trust, because it's a national problem. But for anybody that uses the redways, the volunteers and all the rest of it, one of the most disfiguring things is dog poo, and especially the low life that put it in plastic bags and leave it for decoration. Not a criticism of the Parks Trust, but I wonder, is there any creativity we can apply apart from nuking them that we could, to do with that?
Well, nuking them is probably the answer, but no, seriously, we do have a good and improving relationship with enforcement team at Milton Keynes Council, and we think a few on-the-spot fines would really help, especially if we can publicise that. We think probably in some places we do need some more dog bins, and we are helped in just about every parish by the parish councils with those dog bins, and that works really well. You can of course use a normal litter bin, but so perhaps some more dog bins. And I guess it's about education, and we are working with 6,000 kids every year. I don't know if dog poo comes on your curriculum.
Yeah, you can always talk to children about poo.
Yeah.
Because they will go, oh no, look at that, and they're very aware of it as well. And I will have to keep saying, well, when we go out, we always do. You know,
Yeah.
they're quite.
So peer pressure, but we don't. There isn't a magic bullet.
Enforcement.
Enforcement, I think. It's a mixture of enforcement, education, and clearing it up really effectively, I think.
Yes, clearing it up really effectively is important.
It is.
You can walk a long way round Bullen Lake without seeing a poo bin, and there are some people who prefer not to do that. Whether you educate them or whether you enforce them, if they're that lazy, they're going to do it again and again and again.
Robert, do you want to add anything? We have got some mobile CCTV cameras that we have used quite effectively in problem spots. I know down at Woolstone we put the camera up there for a week by the water gardens there, and we caught a guy on camera every morning stopping in the same place, drinking his coffee and throwing it out of his van window. And I think he got prosecuted.
It wasn't a criticism.
No, John, I know. Yeah, here we are. Sorry.
You mentioned earlier about the new developments on the east and west side. Can I say, do you have any, or can you have any influence in what parks, landscapes goes into those new developments?
We can, but I have to say the whole process whereby new parks are planned, designed, implemented and then handed over is really very unsatisfactory, and it's something we've been trying to resolve with the council for quite a few years. We had an agreement with the council, a memorandum of understanding, a few years ago, but that sadly sort of went by the board when the last chief executive left us. It's not getting any better. We had a meeting with the major developer out on the western expansion area today, who confirmed that most of the hedges in the area 10 that he has brought forward for development have been now divided up and parcelled off with the parcels of land and gone to the individual developers, Bovis, Wimpy and the like. Whereas previously we'd been talking to them about ensuring that all the old hedges were incorporated in linear parks, kept together as one feature and transferred to us for the management. But he has decided, not him personally, but his company decided they would parcel them off to the individual house builders. So we've got lovely old hedges out there on the western expansion area that have all been fragmented and broken up. And what is worse is that the way in which they're going to be maintained or not is by a service charge on the local residents. So some local management company has to be established out there, or several for each little penny piece, and they will have to collect the service charge from the residents in that local area and then commission someone to maintain the hedgerow. It's extremely unsatisfactory, and that's not something we want to see carry on in the other areas. Come on, let's finish on a high note.
Not really, it's a bit basic to be honest. Going back one subject, and public nuisance. While you're sorting out the dog poo situation, can you sort out the speeding cyclists at the same time? They're not on your land, I believe, on the rest.
Speeding cyclists. Yes, let's say we'll sort that out. Phil is usually here with the cycling fraternity. No, he's not here this time. But yeah, interesting enough, we did have a look at dusting off the old Redway Code. You'll remember that, Brian?
Yeah.
Development Corporation, because these Redway things were new things for everybody coming to the city, they promoted a code of conduct. This is how you behave on Redways. And it said, you know, shared surfaces, shared paths are perfectly acceptable as long as everyone respects everybody. That's basically what the code said. And we looked at dusting that off the other day, didn't we? Because we had a similar complaint about cyclists. It doesn't often happen that cyclists do run over or hit people, but I know when I cycle into work, the worst thing for me is the dogs on the extendable leads. And you're trying to, oh God, you're trying to get to, yeah.
More of those. The Redway Code is still on the Redway map.
The Redway Code is still on the Redway map. There we are. Okay. Are we going to stop there, or is there one more? We're going to stop there. So what I would suggest you do is go and have a few more canapes. I think there are a few. Have a drink. Do talk to my colleagues dotted around this marquee and inside. Do have a look at that 25-mile walk fly-through that's going on a continuous loop. One person I didn't mention who's just caught my eye here is Rob, who is our new general manager at Willen Lake. He's got a little stall in there, in the room as well. So go and talk to him about the price of the splash and play. Okay. Right. Well, thank you all ever so much for coming.